Hello humans, still February 3rd. It's the last leg, the last 30 plus miles on the way out to the coast. And I wanted to get back into the subject of the ELohim and the ELohim worship cult and all of the stuff that's going on there. As we move into the age of Aquarius, we're not going to be able to support all the bullshit, right? Age of Aquarius is all about knowledge. Knowledge requires fact in order to be able to make truth. So truth is actually, so in order to do my work with the large language model starting in 1993 and the psychic information leaking out of people, I really had to define and think about stuff. And truth is actually an emotion that's attached to something. It's a feeling. You feel that something is true. You perceive it as being true. And truth can be attached to a fact. So, you know, it's true that there's gravity and I can't jump to the moon, right? It's factual even that there's gravity and I can't jump to the moon. I say gravity, but, you know, I'm just using it as a word to explain or to label the phenomenon, not explain it. You can also say it's true that, so you can have a truth associated with a fact, you can have truth associated with a perspective, and you can have truth not associated appropriately, right? So there's people running out there saying, you know, emotions are true and facts are negligible. And it's like, well, okay, that's a decent statement. The statement itself might be true, but it doesn't really aid you in understanding what's going on here. But we're coming into an age of knowledge. That knowledge requires us to have all of the aspects of knowledge. You got to have memory so that you can remember from one item to the next, right? So that's what the ELohim worship cult wants to do, is to really fuck over your memory so you don't remember this shit. So you don't remember it was them doing the destruction of the towers in, on 9/11 and not actual 16 Saudis or whatever the fuck it was, right? That's all so much horseshit. We don't believe any of these things. None of them are true in spite of the mainstream media trying to defend them as true. So we're coming into this period of time that I've described as hyper-novelty, that is part of this lead-in to these couple of thousand years of the age of Aquarius, in which we're really going to get at stuff. In doing so, all of the lies will be falling aside, and people will pick them up and say, no, that's a lie. I don't even have to pursue it anymore. You can shout up and down all you want about it, but it's a lie and it's not worth my time to fuck around with, right? So it's a lie that Israel existed prior to 1947. It's a lie that there were any gods associated with the ancient Judeans. It's a lie that there were any Jews mentioned in the Bible, and so on and so on. And so we'll get at all of these and we'll discard them, and, you know, thousands of years from now, but probably also even maybe as little as 20 or 30 or 40 years from now, lots of things won't exist. So we'll see a lot of the religions fall away. A lot of people will decide, no, I'm not a Jew. You know, I'm not going to do that stuff anymore. I'm not going to participate in these rituals that are intended to invoke and appease the ELohim. And that's all they are, is, you know, a remnant of Stockholm syndrome, and that I needn't bother myself with them. And they just simply won't be Jews anymore. Maybe they'll have, you know, some feelings of angst or whatever from community, and maybe they'll form some other community. Who the hell knows what's going to happen? But we won't have Judaism as we have it now. There will probably always be adherents, and there will probably always be people doing these rituals. But at some point, these guys are going to be facing prohibition. In other words, there will be laws that will say, no, you can't do these Jewish rituals. And this, in my opinion, will arise from the our contact with the ELohim, which is upcoming. So we will be in contact with space aliens. There are people that are very knowledgeable, very serious, solid thinkers that are pretty sure that it'll be this year. I don't know that it'll be this year. I don't have anything solid that will be this year, but I know that if it's not this year, it'll be next year. So 2024 or 2025, we'll get into some the space aliens in a big way. Now, we'll get into it in a big way in the language long before we get into it in a big way and get introduced to the fuckers. But we're going to encounter some events over this year that will push us into open discussion about space aliens, UFOs, and this kind of thing, which is going to crack open the whole issue of the ELohim to the normies. And this will be happening June, July, August, in there. And it will have a serious impact on religions. Going to cause all kinds of religious upheaval. I don't know if we're going to call it Reformation or not. Okay, so in my thinking, Christianity will still exist, although Judaism will not. Okay, and there's some real possibility that there will be damage done to Islam relative to the to Gabriel and the ELohim. Once it becomes generally known to the Islamists that Gabriel was one of these the same species of being that all of the demons are, it's like, well, maybe they won't be so hot on the delivered Quran to Muhammad once the source of that material becomes known as a space alien and not a revealed presence of a creator God. However, like I say, I think there's going to be a reformation and a resurgence in Christianity. But I think that this reformation and resurgence in Christianity is going to leave people like Bo Polney and Phil Godlewski behind, because these guys are adherents, they're adherents of the Old Testament, which was badly translated and was all about the ELohim. It really doesn't relate very much to Jesus at all. In terms of the actual output of that mind that we ascribe to Jesus, right? Leaving aside any aspects of divinity or any of that kind of stuff. And so, for me, it's what Jesus said and the thinking involved that makes that personality worth reading about and understanding. To other people like Bo Polney, it's the mythos of the guy surviving being crucified, right? And an idolater, and that's how they speak about him in the Talmud. So we'll lose the Talmud as any kind of a reference. And if there's all these people that I deal with and have in the past, and if I see a Talmud that's displayed behind him, it's like, okay, fine, I'm done with you. I'm not going to be able to talk to you about these fundamental things because you believe that this is actually law, this oral tradition stuff, and you disregard. You're an ELohim denier. Okay, so they deny that the ELohim were corporeal beings, and they insist that that ELohim is a name for a single monotheistic creator God, which it is not. It's plural, etc., etc. So I'm saying I'm done with the Jews that follow the Talmud. Other guys that maybe had grown up Jewish and are questioning what the fuck is a Jew, what the fuck am I, and so on. I've got no problem talking with them. But it's these people with this rigid mindset that the rituals are everything. So bear in mind, Christianity, you are saved by believing in Christ and believing that Christ was God is appeased, right? So it's kind of a screwy ass religion because they're saying you can trick your gods to not giving you shit for the sins you've created. And it's like, this is a little bogus on its face. But anyway, in my opinion, we'll lose the Talmud as anything that's authoritative. And we'll also lose the Torah. Bear in mind that some of the synoptic gospel writers, so the book of Luke and the book of Matthew, both insist that the Torah should be followed, that all the rituals in the Torah should be followed. And both of those insist this in order that the Elohim might not be disturbed. Okay, so they're basically saying, both of those are saying, are aware of the Elohim, aware that they're potentially a really nasty bit of work that's going to cause you problems. And here they're saying, if you follow all this shit in the Talmud, then maybe these guys aren't going to come and hassle you. But they're not claiming they're God, okay? In fact, if you read these, like John, the book of John, you see how Jesus detested the Elohim and what it had done to the Essenes, what the Elohim had done to these tribes. Meaningless rituals that in fact connected no one to any kind of a god and are just mind-numbing kind of stuff that is remnant of MK Ultra. So a lot of the rituals in the Jewish tradition are intended to cause a form of mind control to emerge. The repetitious movements, the connection of the body movements to specific words at specific times, and so on. It's all, MK Ultra, CCP, North Korea kind of brainwashing shit. Anyway, so in my opinion, a lot of that's going to fall away, but we will have a bizarre kind of a thing in the sense that we're going to have, in my opinion, we're going to have a new Christianity emerge. Now, you could say it's a reformation, that it's a revival, but I'm of the opinion that this Christianity is not going to bring along the Old Testament. It's not going to follow the dictates of Luke and Matthew, and you have to understand who Luke and Matthew were relative to the Elohim and stuff to see why they included that in there. I think it's going to be much more like Mark and Jesus, both of whom were Elohim repudiators, right? They didn't deny they existed. They just said that, no, we don't have to pay any attention to these fuckers. They're not gods. They're abusive monsters here. So I think we're going to have a new form of Christianity that'll be like the Christian Gospels, and without all of the bogus bullshit that comes along from the Torah and the mistranslations of it into the Old Testament. So this will be very interesting to watch unfold over the years. Yeah, it's going to be weird, guys. It's going to be weird because we've been in a trapped, closed, locked down kind of a situation philosophically, economically, politically, and culturally, socially for so long, and now it's all open. And we're busting out all of this shit everywhere, and it's going to be really energetic, very, very, very dynamic over these next few years as all this stuff unfolds for us. This revival for Christianity, I think, is going to be global, but I think that the big impetus for it will be here in the States. But I also think it's going to leave behind a lot of these mega church pastor kind of guys that are like Bo Polney. They're all Old Testament adherents. That's really all they ever talk about, and only occasionally make nominal mention of anything that Jesus might have said in terms of philosophically or culturally, right? And so we're going to have some big economic impacts too, as the whole nature of the religions in the Christian world change here. So we'll see, like Catholic churches sold. We'll see synagogues actually abandoned because they won't be able to get people to buy them. But there won't be people going into them, and the whole rabbinical council. I'm actually expecting a really bad time where we'll find in some areas that this will be maybe it'll be before fall, but it'll be in this energetic period of time, because so many people are in the rabbinical councils are connected to the abusers, and so there's a bunch of levels of abuse that occur within the rabbinical councils. Half of all of the Hasidics are said to have been and suffers some form of long-term damage as a result of that. This kind of stuff is going to lead to when all this stuff pops off and we lose authority, and the authority of the religious cultists starts fading very rapidly, which it is now, starting to really roll on and start that kind of thing getting lost here. As that moves on, people are going to feel emboldened to address the fact that they had been abused. So you see a lot of Jew-on-Jew violence, okay, but it'll really be, we're getting a lot of that kind of stuff in the data, that there is going to be compensation, not in the form of making you whole, but in the form of making someone else have the same level of suffering that you perceive coming up. Okay, so this period of time is, as I say, is going to be very energetic. Then there's going to be other aspects of this where specific individuals are going to be targeted and taken out because of their association with the Mother Wefers, the ELohim worship cult, and that kind of thing. These are a little bit more strategic. So we're coming up into that period of time where we will have let's say supporting. This happens in all these kind of communist revolutions, right? Only in this case, it's not going to be the communists that are out there doing it. It'll be people doing it to the communists because they've made the very egregious and irreparable mistake of allowing themselves to become known. So just like you saw on Alex Jones the other day, some guy, I think his name is Ivan something, telling the World Economic Forum and the ELohim cultists, everybody clap, clap, clap for days. And in the meantime, the acclaim of that action and the success of that action emboldens other people, and they start popping off on some of these other wefers. And so that would be the way it would roll. I do not expect that, right? I don't expect those kind of things to occur. At a lower level, especially relative to these rabbinical councils that are the prime movers and shakers for a lot of the damage and degradation to the social order in all of the Western countries. And I expect that we'll see people fleeing these countries, Jewish people fleeing these countries, guilty Jewish people fleeing these countries, trying to get to some safe haven, which I don't believe will be Israel. I think these guys are going to try and go to the Ukraine. So it's going to be an interesting period, and we're in it now. It's going to get really dynamically moving, in my opinion, around the February 18th, which is Sunday, I think, as we have some big economic shifts. Those economic shifts are going to expose a lot of the suffering that everybody's in, and also expose a lot of the evildoers. And from that point on, it's like, wow, look at what happens, you know. So at this point, you know, such and so can't go out anymore. Such and so can't fly on any airplane, and a lot of the private plane guys won't even rent their planes to him. Right? It's that bad. So if you're, you know, once it all breaks, then the breaks open, then there'll be a lot of people that are just it won't be in their commercial interest to rent a plane to somebody because they don't want their plane blown up in order to get at that guy, which I'm certain that's coming. I'm certain that's going to happen, that there will be assaults like that. And given the nature of things now, we'll all get to see it. It'll also be in the interest of the Patriot community to get this information out there, because it starts waking up even more people, etc., etc. So we're basically there now, and we'll see this stuff unfold this year. I don't know if we're actually going to meet the ELohim, if we're actually going to have the space aliens show up this year. But we will certainly be discussing them. We'll certainly be tearing into all the history about it, redoing all of our history, getting rid of this extra 1,000 years that existed in there, and getting the Narradim all cleaned up. Again, it is the formation of the orthodoxy of the new Narradim now that is starting, that is one of the propellants for what people are describing as infighting, but really it's a purge, right? It's purging these unsavory characters that are in the Patriot network, that are grifters, that all they're doing is sucking money and causing problems and causing suffering, and they're not as they say, right? So anybody telling you they've got inside information to Q is one of those guys that we got to get rid of. Anybody and everybody. Because they're lying. There are no private comms. Anyway, so almost back. We're at that stage now where we're going to have the more ugly parts of the purge stuff come out, and a lot of personalities will fade. Some of them should explode, just given the nature of their personality and the dynamic that they're involved in. Going to see a lot of really goofy shit, but it's necessary that we go through all of this in order that we put it behind us and come out the other side with the ability to rebuild our Narradim. So we're going to have to rebuild it, because we've got to really examine all of the shit we've been told for 1,000 years as to whether it's true, factual, or valid in any way. Much of it is not. And we just got to discard it. Just like, I discard all these people, Kerry Cassidy and Gene Decode and all these other fuckers saying, be afraid of AI. I just discard all of that. They're just an impediment. Their fear is they're attempting to use their fear to limit your access to a very effective tool. So it's like, what's going on there? Just because you're scared of it doesn't mean I have to be scared of it. Anyway, guys, I'm back now. I've got to do stuff. So rough days. I'll maybe do another talk. It's next week, Thursday, maybe next Saturday. If I don't get those 2 days, it'll be the week after, because I've got a bunch of stuff going on here. Anyway, talk to y'all later.